So I wanted to walk through of the AI redaction feature that I've built into the platform that I've created that I've called Dezcry. So I've loaded some of the Epstein files as test data into the platform, as you can see here. And I've found a few emails that are good candidates for a fake sort of pretend DSAR. So within the Epstein files, there's a character by the name of Ehud Barak. He is the former Israeli prime minister, and he features quite in a number of emails within the Epstein files. And so he can be a pretty good pretend DSAR subject, given that he has um, some fairly standard emails with Jeffrey Epstein and many other people. It's kind of a good test to use for a DSAR. So I'll just show you the three emails that I'm going to use to test. So you can see here, it's just we have a chain between Ehud Barak and Jeffrey Epstein, and it's just about some investment in Israel, and there's a bunch of other people named here. Yeah, very similar. I think Ehud Barak sending through a proposal to Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, and it looks like Ehud Barak has then forwarded the proposal onto, I presume that's his significant other. Just a fairly standard email, standard few emails to use for testing the DSAR capability that I've built in this platform. Similar to relativity, the way Dezcry works, or the way it applies redactions is we have this markup tab, and this is where the redactions will be applied here. So this is essentially the image version of the document. It's a screenshot version of the document that would be produced if the document was required to go to court. So these are the three documents that I'll test on. So I'll go into the AI redact feature. We'll create a new redaction set. We'll select DSAR redaction because that's the type of redaction we're doing. I've also created a automated privilege redaction and ad hoc redaction, which is just for, if you want to redact some sort of sensitive data or IP of some kind, something that is not as easy as just applying a search term and then mass redacting, something that's more contextual in nature, then that can be done through the ad hoc system. But for today, I'll just focus on the DSAR redaction feature. So, and as a reminder, when doing a DSAR, we want the tool to redact all personal information of that belonging to everyone except the requester. So as you'll see in a moment, we're going to set up Ehud Barak as being the DSAR requester in our pretend scenario, and therefore we would expect everyone else to be redacted. So hit continue, go to my saved search that I've already created. All right, so here's where we input all information that we know about the requester, and this is so that it can be whitelisted by the redaction engine. And so we actually don't know too much in this case. I have an email address from the emails, which I'm going to use. But other than that, we only really have the first name, last name, and email address of Ehud Barak. If we had phone numbers, or middle names, maiden names, other aliases, we could import them here, and that's just to improve the level of whitelisting that is applied. There's also we have the option here to add additional instructions, and so this is where if a client wanted us to apply sensitive redactions, IP redactions, or just something on top of the standard sort of DSAR personal data redaction request, then we could import that here in the format of a prompt, and that would attempt to redact anything on top of the standard DSAR requirements. So for now, we've got first name, last name, email address. I'm going to hit continue. Here's where we select the models that will be redacted. So it's essentially the type of information that we're looking to redact. So personal names, email addresses, phone numbers, all fairly standard. The only one that would really depend on region is company identifiers. So, for example, in Switzerland, you have this idea of something called CID, and that's where in a Swiss-based DSAR, you would need to also redact the sort of third-party information or customer identifying information from documents as well. So the names of suppliers, the name of contractors, the names of like other third parties that are involved that are mentioned, sorry, within the documents would also need to be redacted, but that can change depending on region. So you know this can be selected or deselected. And this is what we have so far, and we can add or remove models. If we get specific feedback from any clients, we can add models that we look to identify information to redact from. But these are the standard ones, the standard 14 that we have so far. Continue. Now it's just going to ask us to review before we run the set. We also have the option to, rather than applying black box redaction, we can also apply like a text-based redaction, depending on the client's preference there. So I'm just going to hit start. Now, at this point, I should note that the AI redaction, it relies upon a local LLM, which does take a while to warm up to begin with, because when you're running LLMs on the cloud or in Azure in this specific scenario, it is costly to leave them on at all times. And so what many people do is that they have them off by default, and they essentially turn on when needed, and that process of turning on can take a few minutes until they're ready. And so that's why this will take a few minutes until it actually starts the redaction process, but that's just that redaction worker warming up. So we can see the worker is now finished warming up, and it's actually now starting the redaction process. And now the way I've set this up to work is, rather than just having one sort of attempt at redacting all of the information, I've broken it down into 5 different steps. And so step 1 is essentially it's not using a cloud-based LLM. It's simply using sort of an advanced regex tool to pull out the obvious entities identified within the document, such as individuals, names of places, companies, etc. The second step is more is actually using an LLM cloud-based model, and that pulls out any information that step 1 hasn't identified. So that's so it's pulling out information that is slightly more contextual within the document that cannot be identified by pure regex. And then step 3 is a double check I've listed here. It's kind of like a QC of step 1 and step 2. So it's just going to go through both these steps and see if anything has been missed, or whether something has been incorrectly identified as requiring redaction. Step 4, we've called it cross-reference. So what that's doing is it's connecting the entities together. So in this example here, we're looking for Ehud Barak, right? But if there's an email that references Mr. Barak, or perhaps E. Barak, or initials EB, or something like that, like it's just going to consolidate all of these together to combine into a single entity. It's also going to identify other personal information and tie it to that entity. So, for example, if Ehud Barak says, I am traveling to Mayfair this weekend, then that information would not need to be redacted, right? Because that is personal information belonging to the DSAR subject, and therefore it does not need to be redacted. But if let's say it's an email that Jeffrey Epstein is saying that he or Jeffrey will be traveling to Mayfair this weekend, then in that case Mayfair should be redacted because that is personal information not belonging to the DSAR subject. So that's what's happening in step 4. And step 5 is really just tidying things up, making sure all of the redactions have been correctly applied within the document. It's also deduplicating some of the redactions, like if based on there's crossover from the various different steps, then step 5 will deduplicate so there's as few redactions as possible covering the information that needs to be redacted. It also applies a confidence score to each one of the redaction, and it selects whether there are any redactions that need to be put to the human to validate, to confirm, hey, this is actually something that does indeed require redaction, or this is a false positive. So the human is involved in the process, which you'll see shortly. So while we're waiting for that to finish, just want to show as well that we can continue to do other things while this is running, right? So this redaction set can run in the background. Meantime, you can step away, look at documents or do other perform other operations within the system. But hopefully this will finish soon, which it has. We can see we've got completed here. We've got some basic metrics. So 3 documents scanned. They all had PII. Total of 315 redactions identified, which is 105 per document. And it took 6 minutes to process. And now I will note, while 6 minutes does seem like a long time, when it is easy to speed this up. Like right now, everything is running in sequential fashion. However, if we were to get serious, then we could absolutely create some parallelism, meaning that multiple jobs are running at the same time, and therefore this would be much faster. So rest assured that 6 minutes for 3 documents. That's just while we're testing things out and playing around. So let's have a look at the results. So we can see each of these scans are done. Each of the steps are done, and hovering on it, hovering on each step, get a bit more information about it. And so up here, it is asking us to review 7 pending redactions. And it's actually the entity reportee that has been flagged. And I know from looking at these documents in the past that reportee is actually the name of the company. And so it's just asking us to confirm that this should actually be redacted. So I'm going to approve this. Yes, that should be redacted. Now there's nothing more for us in this review queue, so I'll go back to the set. And yeah, we just get a bit of information about the set, and a breakdown of the names, the types of redactions that have been applied to the documents. So let's actually look at the documents themselves. So we can see here on the left-hand side, we have what I call the redaction list, and it just covers the redactions that have been applied to the documents together with their confidence score, and that the AI has determined how confident the AI is that this information should be redacted. And so we can press this peek button here to actually have a look at what is under the redactions. And as you can see, it's correctly redacting the names of entities, the names of non-Ehud Barak individuals. So you can see here Jeffrey Epstein's being redacted. Reportee, this was the example that we had to confirm before. which is indeed the name of an entity. You see here it's also correctly identified that EB here is the initials of Ehud Barak, and therefore it hasn't redacted that. So that's great. You see names, email addresses have all been redacted. And the only sort of personal information that hasn't been redacted belongs to Ehud Barak, which is correct. Yeah, I actually quite like this feature here, like on the left-hand side in the redaction list. So it actually shows here the text that is underneath the redaction. So after applying the redaction, it OCRs the text that's underneath it, and so it just gives the user an easy way to see like what the redaction actually covers. So as you can see, scrolling down, like it all looks pretty correct. But if there was something missed, or if there was something missed, then the user could quite simply just grab a box and just apply it here, as such. Equally, if there's something that they would like to remove, they can just right-click, delete, and that redaction will go away. Third and final document. Yeah, again, everything looks pretty correct. Yeah, and so that's it really in a nutshell. That's the redaction feature. I mean, the users could also create a decision field and then code whether or not the redactions are correct or not. Or they could simply apply a QC based on a percentage sample. Perhaps they want to review 5% of all of the redactions, and depending on the result of that review, for example, if 99% of that 5% is correct, then they wouldn't need to review further. There's so each client would be comfortable with their own. Every client would be different, in their level of comfort on how they would like to proceed with this. But whether it's reviewing every document that's been redacted, or creating a sort of, like I said, like a confidence sample, and reviewing on that basis. But either way, either workflow we could easily create, and once that's done, the user can simply export the redacted information.